I always knew my Grandma Margaret wasn't a warm or affectionate person, but I never imagined she would try to replace her own granddaughter like I was a defective object. My name is Emily, and for most of my life I thought the problem was me. Maybe I wasn't the loving granddaughter she wanted. Maybe I was too quiet, too independent, too normal. But the truth was much darker. My grandma didn't want a granddaughter. She wanted a puppet. And when I wasn't controllable, she started grooming someone else to take my place. It began when I came home from college for a short weekend. My mom mentioned that Grandma had been spending a lot of time with a girl named Chloe. Chloe wasn't related to us. She was the daughter of one of Grandma's distant acquaintances, a pretty girl who lived nearby and helped Grandma with errands. At first, I didn't think anything of it. But then I visited Grandma one afternoon without warning. When I walked into the living room, Chloe was sitting on the couch wearing one of Grandma's hand-knitted sweaters. Those sweaters were something Grandma never even offered me. And what struck me even more was the smile on Grandma's face. Not the forced, polite smile she gave me, a genuine, warm smile. When Grandma noticed me at the door, her face instantly hardened. She muttered that she didn't expect me to come by. Chloe stood up and said cheerfully that Grandma had been telling her about her estate planning. But Grandma quickly shut her down, saying it was private. The word estate hit me in the chest like ice. Why was my grandmother discussing her future inheritance with someone who wasn't family? Weeks passed and Grandma barely spoke to me. When she did, she talked about Chloe like she was the sun in her sky. Chloe drove her to appointments. Chloe helped her shop. Chloe brought her lunch. It was as if she had adopted a brand new granddaughter. Then everything changed the day Mom found a letter in our garage while cleaning. She thought it was junk mail at first, but the moment she read it, she froze. Her face went completely pale as she handed me the envelope. It was from Grandma's lawyer. Inside was a draft of her updated will. My eyes scanned the document faster and faster, and with every line my heart pounded harder. Everything my grandma owned was being left to Chloe, not to me, not to my mom, not to anyone in our family. Chloe, a girl she had known for less than a year, was set to inherit the house, the farmland, all of her antiques, every investment she had, and even a private savings account worth more than $300,000. My mother was left with nothing. I was left with nothing. Our entire bloodline was erased in one signature. My chest filled with a heat I'd never felt before. This wasn't simple favoritism. She was replacing us. The next morning, I went to Grandma's house. She wasn't home. Chloe had taken her out for groceries that gave me the chance I needed. I wasn't looking for gossip. I was looking for answers. And I found them. There was a folder in her desk labeled Helper Fund. Inside it were bank statements showing regular payments to Chloe. There was a check that had already been cashed for $25,000. There were emails to a lawyer discussing a formal guardianship transfer to Chloe. There were documents naming Chloe as her medical decision maker. And worst of all, there was a handwritten letter from my grandmother saying, "Chloe is the granddaughter I deserved. Emily and her mother are ungrateful and irresponsible." I felt a sickness coil inside me, but the worst discovery was still coming. I found medical forms with signatures that were supposed to be my mother's, but they were clearly forged. Grandma had been trying to make it look like my mom had refused to help her, painting Chloe as some kind of savior. This wasn't just replacement. It was character assassination. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't confront her. I quietly gathered every document, made copies, and put them neatly back so she wouldn't notice. Then I waited. Her 75th birthday dinner was coming soon. She insisted on inviting the entire family. That was perfect. On the night of the dinner, the house was filled with relatives. Grandma made a dramatic entrance with Chloe holding her arm like a chosen heir. The room murmured in confusion. Then Grandma tapped her glass and announced that she had something life-changing to reveal. She said Chloe had been a blessing, a true light in her final years, and she had decided to make Chloe part of the family legally. She began to speak proudly about inheritance, guardianship, and responsibility. Before she could finish her speech, I placed the folder on the dining table. Calm and steady. Grandma snapped at me, asking what I thought I was doing. I told her I brought the truth. I opened the folder and slid out the documents one by one. The updated will, the bank transfers, the guardianship plans, the forged signatures, the letters insulting me and my mother. The entire room had gone completely silent. My uncles and aunts leaned in with disbelief. Chloe went pale as paper. Grandma's hands trembled violently as she reached for the papers. I looked directly at Chloe and asked if she even knew she was being used to replace an entire family, whether she knew Grandma had forged medical documents, whether she knew she was receiving money stolen from a family trust. Chloe shook her head slowly, horrified. She said she thought Grandma was lonely and just needed help. She had no idea there was a will involved. My relatives erupted. My aunt slammed her hands on the table and demanded to know how Grandma could betray her own daughter. My uncle yelled that she needed help. My mother cried quietly. Grandma looked around the table in shock as she realized nobody was defending her. Everything collapsed that night. Chloe left the house in tears. The next day, my uncles took Grandma to her lawyer. Because of the forged signatures and financial manipulation, the will was frozen. Grandma was declared unfit to manage her own assets. A legal guardian was assigned. And the guardian wasn't Chloe. It was my mother, the woman Grandma had tried to erase. My grandmother now has to ask my mother for permission before spending a single dollar. Every account is monitored. Every document requires verification. She lost all control of everything she spent years building. I visited her a few weeks later. She sat in her living room, smaller than I had ever seen her, without her jewelry, without her pride, without Chloe. She asked why I did this to her. I told her I didn't do anything to her. I simply stopped letting her destroy the people who actually loved her. Then I walked away and finally felt free.